Welcome back to Texas Liberty Podcast. I'm Clark Patterson, and along with Ted Brown, tonight, which is Wednesday, April 24th, 2024, we'll be interviewing Libertarian Party presidential candidate Lars Mapstead. Have I pronounced your name right, Lars?
Yep,
Your last?
yep,
Okay,
Lars
great.
Mapstead, yep.
Great. So Lars, of course, is one of the 7 to 8 candidates. There might actually be more, actually, who are running for the Libertarian Party nomination for president. And so we are grateful and thankful that Lars has taken time out to have us on the show, have him on our show, and we can ask him some questions about how his campaign is going and basically the prospects for liberty down the road. Ted Brown, take it away.
Okay, Lars, welcome on the show. And I first wanted to ask you about your political history. When did you become a libertarian? What kind of views did you have before that? What drove you over the edge to become become a libertarian? And what's been your what you've done since then, since you discovered liberty?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite questions, actually, because I think it really tells the story of why I'm even doing this, right? Why I'm even here. And that is, I've been voting all my life. As soon as I turned 18, I marched down to the post office and registered to vote, and I've been voting ever since. And early on, I the first guy that really caught my attention for president was a guy named Ross Perot. And Ross Perot was talking about the debt, and how the debt was going to be, hurting the youth of today. And at the time, I was the youth of today, but it's been a long time since Ross Perot ran, so no longer the youth of today. But that resonated with me. And then there was a guy named Ron Paul that was running, and he was talking about reducing the debt also, and that resonated with me. I've always been into the sort of financial markets, and anything to do with financial matters really like trips my brain, right? And then he introduced another idea to me, which was the idea of ending the Federal Reserve, and that this, through the Cantillon effect, the government is basically stealing our money each and every day. And so that resonated with me. And later on, in 2007, I never felt like I was a Democrat or a Republican. I felt like sometimes they had some things that I liked on both sides, but that they never really walked their talk. They would say things good, but then they would never deliver on the things that they promised, right? It was always some half measure, or just completely the opposite direction of whatever they said they stood for. So I realized early on that they had no principles. They would sell you out for a buck at any given opportunity, and that we had the illusion of choice, right? There was some point in there voting for Ross Perot and Ron Paul and whoever else I voted for, that I realized we don't have a choice. They're just giving us crap candidate A or crap candidate B and calling it a choice. And I'm like, I didn't sign up for these two guys. I want different people. Can we have different people? And then I realized that no, we can't have different people, because the system is so rigged, that different people aren't even allowed to be an option, right? And so one of the turning points for me was in 2007, I took one of these political quizzes that was going across Facebook, and I thought, oh, this will be a hoot. Am I a Democrat? Am I a Republican? It's fine. I'm finally going to know. The scientific method is going to suss me out and tell me what I am. And so I took this quiz, and it said Libertarian 9090. What the hell's a libertarian? And even though I had voted for Ron Paul, the message didn't reach me that he ran as a libertarian. It just, escaped me. And so I looked up what's a libertarian on Google. I Googled what's a libertarian, and I don't know if I got to the platform or I got to some Wikipedia page or something, but I started reading down it, and I was like, wow, here's my people. I finally found my people that want to allow you to have your guns, and if you want to smoke marijuana, you can. People who want to limit the government and the Federal Reserve, reduce the debt, keep the government out of our lives. I'm like, holy crap, I finally found my people. Awesome. So I donated to Gary Johnson's campaign that year, which was the first political campaign that I ever donated to. And I've been, voting libertarian ever since. I registered as a libertarian and been rah-rahing the party ever since. But I still didn't get the message that there is a party. and that you
Mm-hmm.
can join a party and you can
Mm.
do other things inside the party that will affect liberty outside of just being a voter,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know, no one ever contacted me and said, Lars, you want to be part of this deal? You want to do something for liberty? So I didn't know, and I didn't really know that until 2019. I started really looking into Joe Jorgensen and Spike Cohen, and
Mm-hmm.
then for me, the real nail in the coffin, so to speak, was 2020 and the COVID stuff, right? I was watching business news like I always do. I don't really watch regular news. I pretty much only get my news from business news, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little bit more factual because you're trying to make business decisions, so they give
Mm-hmm.
you a little bit more facts than they would if it's infotainment. Even the financial news has gotten to be crap too. But I was watching that, and they were talking about how there was this virus going around in China, and they
Mm-hmm.
were locking down their citizens, and they were welding their
Mm-hmm.
citizens into their houses. And I thought,
Yeah.
holy crap, that's crazy. I don't ever want to be in China, and thank God I live in America where they would never ever lock us down, right?
Never.
Ever. So 60 days later, I
Mm-hmm.
live in Santa Cruz, California. It is like the
Mm-hmm.
most locked down place you could possibly have
Mm-hmm.
been in the entire
Terrible.
thing. There was literally elderly couples who were in their car watching the sunset, and the police came and told them to go home. They were out past curfew, and then they might be spreading the COVIDs, right? And I'm like,
Mm.
they're not around anybody, and they're inside their car with the windows up. They're not
Mm-hmm.
spreading crap. You guys are just
Yeah.
you've just found your ultimate authoritarian gift, and you're abusing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were telling surfers they couldn't surf in the water, and they're like 50 feet from anybody else, out in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of and it's like they're not spreading COVID. It's like, you guys are insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that really pushed me over the limit. And I said, I want to run for office. My friends had always been saying, have got a lot of smart ideas. You've got a lot of good ideas for fixing the government. You should run for office. Um, and I was watching Joe and Spike run, and I thought,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a businessman, I'm a marketer, and I thought I can use my talents that I used to build my company up to 600 employees doing $350 million a year in sales. I
Mm-hmm.
can use those talents to reach millions and millions and millions of Americans that haven't been reached with the message of libertarianism yet, that
Mm.
haven't got the message that I got, because I want everybody to get to Google what is a libertarian, so that they can too find that they probably are libertarian, that they also want to reduce the state's control over their life, right? I think most people have had a bad interaction with government at some level, right? Whether it's criminal justice, the healthcare system, your education system, the IRS,
Mm-hmm.
it affects everybody. So we all have a story of why we hate the government. And it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, everybody's been affected in a negative way. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where we start. That's where we start to get people to the side of liberty. We say, how did the government screw you? How did the government, act badly in your life? Well, let's work on that thing. Let's work on fixing that thing, because I'm sure you agree that no one else should have to go through that. Wouldn't it be nice if no one else had to go through the suffering that you had to go through? And everybody goes, yeah. And I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing we should work on then. And I'm going to work on you with that. And I'm going to work on this other guy with this other thing. And we're going to
Mm-hmm.
just start reducing the state and its influence in our lives so that we can all live freer, right?
Right.
Sure.
Well, very, very good. So, just to follow up on that, so obviously you've been campaigning amongst libertarians because you need to win the votes of delegates to get the nomination. But have you had much chance to talk to the average citizen on the street? To talk about it, and if so, what's been their reaction?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a lot of the area I live in is very lefty, so I have a lot of really lefty friends, and I have to be a little bit cautious when you talk politics. You can lose friends rather quickly if you
Mm-hmm.
if they're opposed to you. And so I've had some really interesting conversations with my extremely left friends that are bordering on pure socialists, and what I'm found is that there's still common ground. There's still areas where we both agree. And I try to just meander around the things that I know we're going to disagree on and go to the things where we agree on, and then talk about that and talk about how we should be reducing the state there, right? Like, you know, one of the things I love about the left is they'll talk about how the income tax system is rigged, that, you know, people aren't paying their fair share, and that there's all these loopholes in the system and that sort of thing. And I said, well, you know, the best way that we can get rid of the loopholes is we can just end the tax code, and then there won't be any loopholes anymore. And,
Yeah.
you know, and so, and they're, you know, that gets them thinking, you know, they're like, oh, I said, look, the tax code is just a way for Congress to bro out the corporations and the elites and the rich with tax favors and that, you know, favor them. And they're like, yep. And I'm like, so we could probably agree that we should end that kind of stuff. And they're like, yep. And I'm like, so, okay, that's a thing that we can agree on. Right. And so the other thing is like, what I've I hired Larry Sharp about a year ago to help me with my public speaking, because I knew that was going to be a piece that I wasn't excellent at. And I felt like he was a really good messenger of liberty, that he could reach normal
Oh,
people
yeah.
in a way that other people could not, right? And that libertarians, we often speak nerd speak. We speak libertarian nerd speak, right? I was on a show recently and I was talking about the duopoly this and the duopoly that, and the person stopped me and he's like, Lars, I have to ask you, what is this duopoly thing? Right. And so
Yes,
it's
yes.
that's a nerd speak word, right? And that regular people don't understand, but we all get very, very quickly, right? So like an example of messaging that I'm putting out there, instead of saying end the Fed to the regular citizens, I'm saying cancel the bank's credit cards. And that
Yeah.
resonates with people because everybody's got a credit card, right? And everybody knows what happens if you overspend on your credit card. You can't pay the bill, and then they're calling you and harassing you and telling you that, you know, we're dinging your credit and you won't be able to buy a house or a car later because you weren't wise with your finances. Well, that's America. Right?
Yeah.
America's not wise. I ask people, do you think that the government spends the money it takes from you wisely and efficiently? No one has ever said yes.
Nope.
It doesn't, even if you're the most crazy socialist, no one has ever said, I really think, yes, the government spends every penny I give them wisely and efficiently. In fact, Mark Cuban this week notoriously paid something like $270 million in taxes. And he said that he was happy to pay it, but he realized that it wasn't going to be spent wisely or efficiently. And
Yeah.
so to me, it's like, I wouldn't be happy to pay anything if it's going to be wasted. Like, why would I want to work and then give money to something that's just going to burn my money, like literally burn my money to the ground? Why did I even work then?
Yeah.
like, what was the incentive for me to do that? Right. Like, I was talking on a show earlier. I remember when I sold my company for $500 million, obviously I had a very large tax bill.
Oh, yeah.
And
Man.
I sold that in 2007, and I don't remember if it was 2008 or sometime in there. We got in one of our many conflicts that we get in over in the Middle East, and I woke up in the morning and I was watching, and they said they had sent 8 cruise missiles into the Middle East somewhere and, you know, bombed the Middle East, and that these cruise missiles cost $1 million each. And they had sent, I think, 8 or 10 of them, and a couple of them were duds and fell into the sea. And I thought, you know, it's just my luck that I paid for those $2 million ones that just fell into the sea and did nothing. I mean that's probably better than the ones that landed on the kids in the faraway land. You know, I don't want to pay for any of that crap. But it just you know, it just showed me how wasteful our government is, that they took all this money that I worked so hard for and then just literally tossed it into the sea. It's ridiculous, right?
A great example. Clark?
Yes, Lars, let me ask you a question that I think you've probably, of course, heard it before, but I think I'm going to try to approach it from a slightly different angle. You know, the Libertarian candidates, unless they're in a two-person race, we've been at about it under 3% really for over 50 years. You know, I think John Hospers ran for president in 1972. Well, that's 52 years ago. And I don't believe anybody has cracked the 3% range. And again, there are down ballot candidates, of course, who do, but it's usually not. You know, there's only one of the major party candidates in the race. So, what do you say to libertarians like me? And there may not be many of them, Lars, that I think that basically only about 2 to 3% of Americans are really true libertarians. Because I think the average American today, unfortunately, is someone who wants something for nothing. They want freedom, but they also want security. It's like the proverbial 18-year-old kid who's off to college and, okay, parents, treat me like an adult. And then after a month goes by and they're out of money, they're calling, they're calling the parents to see
Yeah.
about getting more money. So, unfortunately, I think that's the majority, the vast majority of Americans. And then, so I've always looked at this as a generational thing. I think we're probably 25 years away, really, and hopefully that assumes this generation of kids. I think this generation of young people, I mean, kids in elementary school, they're called Generation Alpha. I believe that's what the demographers have given that label to them. But those are the people I think we need to focus on, because when Ted and I got into the liberty movement, in fact, the Libertarian Party over 40 years ago, I thought, liberty was at hand. It was just around the corner. But I don't think that's the case. Today, the whole Zoomers and millennials, they're all for the social justice movement, gender justice and racial justice. And quite frankly, Lars, I mean, this kind of impacts you. I think the vast majority of Americans think that, they see Lars Mapstead, they see just a white male, someone who was born on third base. They think that, because, and, we know that's not true. I've seen your history, Lars. You came from nothing. You started, with lots of disadvantages. And see, you, me, and Ted know that it's freedom. Liberty is what allowed you to do the incredible things you've done, starting from literally nothing at all. And I guess I'm just, I hope I'm wrong, but it seems like just so many young people and people our age too. I'm a baby boomer, and so is Ted. I mean, we've screwed things up pretty bad. But when I see
Yeah.
the Zoomers, the 20-year-olds, I mean, unfortunately, when they look at Lars Mapstead, they just see a white male. And freedom, what use do they have for freedom when, again, we know freedom is why you've prospered, as much as you have. So tell me something positive about what I've just said, Lars.
Yeah. Well, I certainly can see how you would come to that conclusion. I mean, it's clear that we've been trying the same thing over and over and over again and haven't really gotten any different results, right? And so, I mean, that's kind of one of the things that I'm pushing for in my campaign, is that I want to do something different than just run a regular national campaign that, gets us 1 to 3%. Like all the other candidates, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but all the other candidates, in my opinion, are going to run pretty much the same thing that we've done before, and we're going to get the same results. It's not like there's going to be some magic thing, but I don't think that libertarian people are only 1 to 3% of the population. I think that we have a messaging problem and that we haven't got our message out there. Just for the fact that I didn't get the message, and literally, for 25 years I didn't get the message, and even then when I did, no one called me and told me to join the party and give money, right? Like I had money. No one ever asked me to donate, right? And so I think that, I would like to see the party get to 10 million people. I think that that's the number that we kind of need to start really actually affecting change. That's where we have enough people in each state where we can actually get local people elected, which is where we're going to get more change than the presidency, right? Like to me, the local stuff is kind of where we need to focus. I believe that we can get more than that, but we have to get every American to Google what is a libertarian and then say, yes, this is me. And I want to tell you that I have lots and lots and lots of friends here in my town who are hard workers, who have good work ethic, that want to have the American dream, that believe in the American dream, and that believe that liberty and freedom and personal choice and personal responsibility are the keys to achieving this. And I agree with you. Young people tend to be a little bit more idealistic. I certainly was when I was young. And as you get older and the government continues to apply more and more force against you, you become disillusioned at the fact that, that the government's going to somehow take care of you, because you realize it's oppressing you. And how can it take care of you if it's oppressing you, right? So, what I'm trying to do here is run that regular national campaign that everybody else is doing. But on top of that, I'm trying to get a win for the Libertarian Party on election night by winning electoral votes and causing a contingent election and completely messing up the duopoly to the point where the national news media is talking the day after the election and saying the libertarians completely spoiled and ruined this rotten election. And now the House of Representatives has to fix this by voting who's going to be president of the United States. And that is going to get the media just talking about libertarians nonstop. That's going to give all the candidates who are running across the country cover to say, oh my God, they can actually win. They can actually affect change. They can affect the national presidential election. That's how much power the Libertarian Party has come up to. Maybe I should take a second look at them because maybe they can win. Because a lot of what I get is, I'd vote for you guys, but you can't win. I get that all the time. And if we showed that we could win, suddenly it was like, oh, crap, I'll vote for you. If you guys can do that, maybe you can do more, right? And this is already working. When I was in Texas, it was still kind of just fresh breaking, but I went on Schmerkanish show. And on the Schmerkanish show, I was talking about this Stop 270, deny the electoral votes and cause this contingent election. And 3 or 4 days later, Donald Trump called up the governor of Nebraska, and I'm targeting Maine and Nebraska because they split their electoral vote and they only need 250,000 votes in each of those to win electoral votes. Totally achievable. So he calls up the governor of Nebraska and he says, I want you to get rid of the split electoral vote. I want you to go back to winner take all. We need to rig this election system so that the libertarians can't win here, right? I mean, this is a standard tactic they do over and over again. They see that we find a chink in the armor and they close it down on the libertarians by ballot access issues or gerrymandering or whatever, suing us off the ballot like you guys get in Texas all the time. And so they literally had a vote 2 days later to try to take it back to winner take all. They attached it to a veterans bill because, of course, why not? Whenever you want to pass something, you attach it to the children or the veterans or the retired people or the disabled people or something like that. And so, fortunately, it didn't pass. We had people on the ground in Nebraska because we've already set up offices there and in Maine in order to win this electoral vote. If I get the nomination for the party, I want to hit the ground running and really crack this thing open. And the next morning, after that vote went down, Erin Burnett was on CNN with Andrew Yang, and she's talking about how this election could come down to 269 electoral votes to 269 electoral votes, and that 1 or 2 electoral votes could cause this contingent election. So they're literally talking my talking points on CNN, right? Which was amazing to me. And you can see, if you go to X, Twitter right now, you can see the top pinned post I have is that interview with her and Yang talking about that. And then to wind it out is 2 days later, I got a call from one of my people that had been doing articles on me. And he said, hey, you've just, there's this article my guy just published on you. Larry Ellison is running super PACs for Donald Trump. And they are passing around your polling in the donor packages that Donald Trump is handing out, right? And I'm the only candidate that's been in 13 national polls. I kind of use my marketing tactics to guerrilla market my way into Wall Street Journal polls that, have been featured on CNN and Fox, and that they all think that I'm already the libertarian candidate, which I'm fine with, right? I'm fine with. And then the final piece of that is Donald Trump went on Truth Social and posted one of my polls with my name on it a couple days after that. So it's clear that I'm on their radar. I've got them running a little bit scared, and this is a real deal. And I'm also getting a lot of flack inside the Libertarian Party. They're starting to attack this idea. They're like, it can never happen. It can't happen. If you do that, Lars, what's going to happen is you're going to piss them off and they're going to crack down on us even more. And I'm like, so you'd rather just lose and continue with 1 to 3% than try to do something good, right? Or this will never happen. It's never happened before. And I'm like, well, I'm willing to put another $1 million of my own money because I think that it can happen. Right. Tell me another candidate that's willing to put $1 million of their own money down because they think this plan can work. I totally believe we can achieve this. And I've reached out to Kennedy. I've been talking to Kennedy since before he even jumped ship from the Democrats. And he's fully on board to also win electoral votes, not in the states that I'm targeting. And it makes it much more plausible if he wins a couple of states that this thing actually happens, right? And the independents and the third parties, give a straight middle finger to the duopoly on election day. I mean, nothing would make me happier than to basically shaft the two parties that I haven't felt a part of in my entire life. Like I said, I've been voting all my life, and I've never elected a congressperson. So I've never been represented in my entire life, as far as I'm concerned, right? So,
Yeah, well, I agree with you, Lars. I mean, I've never voted for a presidential candidate or a U.S. Senate candidate or a congressional candidate who's been elected. In fact, even some mostly lower offices until I moved to Texas. And there's a few local partisan offices that I voted for the person that won, but it's been a rarity. And I would love to vote for an actual president. So that's something I would certainly look forward to. Now,
yeah.
there's quite a few people running for the Libertarian presidential nomination, and all of you probably know each other pretty well by now. You're
Yep.
like in the cattle call, going to all these state conventions and debating each other, including in Texas just recently. And I very much applaud these debates. I mean, I wish the general public could see them, because there's actual solutions, freedom-oriented solutions for the nation's problems in these debates, and you sure don't get that from the Democrats and Republicans. So, and interestingly, though, most of your fellow contenders have not been in the party a real long time either, or active in the party, just a few years or less, except for Jacob Hornberger, who's like the I don't know, the dean of all libertarian ideology and everything. So I was wondering, you've met all these guys, you've been campaigning with them and all. What do you think of this crop of presidential candidates? Would we be well served with most of them, or would you think it'd be a disaster to have a few of these guys?
No, 100%. I mean, everybody running, for the most part, look, libertarians live within an Overton window. And if you move outside of that Overton window, they call you not a real libertarian, right? So all of our policies are fairly close together. I mean, we might vary on a little bit of something here or there, but we all pretty much agree on the same thing. I've had good conversations, personal conversations with all these guys. I've given them rides to airports. I've given them rides to, catch their plane to the next convention. I get along with everybody that is on the panel. I think, yeah, we would be fine with all of them. But to me, none of them have a real plan to do anything other than get 1 to 3%. And I just don't want to settle for that this time. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of not winning for the Libertarian Party. So yeah, I mean, they're all great guys. And I have nothing really bad to say about any of them. They all have a different way of being principled. I love Hornberger in the sense that he really believes what he says. And he's an older guy. He's been doing it a long time, and so he just sticks to his gun because he doesn't care, right? And I say that Hornberger is kind of like the North Star candidate. He's like, if everything was perfectly aligned, we'd probably all end up in Hornberger land. But to me, you have to have a plan to get there. You can't just wave a magic wand and get there. So, I like him. Chase is a great advocate for liberty. Mike Termott is great. Rechtenwald and Josh Smith, all these guys, they all bring something to the table. They all have the reason why they hate the state. And that's usually their pet thing that they really want to push. And so, yeah, I appreciate all of them.
Okay, Clark.
Great. Yes. Well, that's always great to hear. And I couldn't agree with you more, Lars. It's like when you think of Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and who were the last guys? I don't even remember. Let's see, Mitt Romney and Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Wow. Any of the guys on the LP on that
would be better
debate
than them.
stage. Oh,
Yeah.
not even close. But now that we've agreed on all that, Lars, tell me again. You kind of alluded to a few of the issues you want to push earlier, of course. But in the few minutes, we have about 5 minutes, guys, left. Believe it or not.
Yeah,
I'm having such a great time. So, what are the issues that you really want to push to get us to break out of that single digit funk that we've been in as libertarians for, like I say, probably over 50 years now?
Yeah. One of the main things is I talk about, I tell my kids this, that people vote with their wallets, right? And we talked this a little bit earlier, is if you don't have any money, you vote for programs that give you money. And if you have a lot of money, you vote for programs that don't take your money away, right? But the thing is that everybody in America right now, regardless of where your income status is or your wealth status, everybody is suffering under inflation. Everyone is complaining about the high cost of all these things, and that really comes down to, you know, the Federal Reserve and the Cantillon effect, where the Federal Reserve bros out the banking cartel, and then it trickles down to the corporations, and by the time it gets to you and me, it's pennies on the dollar, and it's already after inflation. So we're just getting, you know, shafted on every level, right? So what we've put together is 37 pieces of policy. I had a full policy team meet twice a week for 9 months and craft these 37 pieces of policy. Larry Sharp was on the team. Michael White down in Arkansas was on the team. You know, Tyler Harris, Seth Levy, Dan Johnson. I just have a whole team. And then we brought in experts for each of the pieces of policy to really like flush it out. Several other things we have white papers on. A big piece of it is my voters' Bill of Rights, because I realized how rigged our election system was, and not for the reasons most people think. You know, we need to level the playing field for ballot access. We need to end the gerrymandering. We need to allow for transparency in our election system. So the Voters' Bill of Rights, I think, is a critical piece that I put forward, and it's nonpartisan. We've sent it out to all the Congress people in Congress. We're trying to send it to state houses. We want to get people talking about this, allowing for states to have multi-district membership instead of just, you know, one per thing. Allowing felons to get their right to vote back after they've served their time, so that they're not criminals for the rest of their lives. Allowing you to have a paper receipt of your vote so that you can match it up to the government and audit the government yourself. Allow any citizen to audit the government, the vote, and allow us to have transparent voting machines, that sort of thing. Criminal justice reform, completely end the failed war on drugs, is a huge piece of it. I'm 37 years sober, but I fully support your right to put in your body whatever you want to put in your body, and the government should have no say in it whatsoever. We need to end the monopolistic cartels that the government has granted a monopoly to, that is just driving up drug use in America and also human trafficking at our border. We need to end qualified immunity, end civil asset forfeiture. You know, our whole criminal justice system needs to be fixed. You can see that I picked the top 5 things that Americans care about most. Our healthcare system, allowing for more competition, more transparency in the system, so that we get better healthcare for, you know, less cost. And you know, there's a bunch of those things, and then just ending the bureaucratic state. One of the big pieces that I have is there's a thing called the Plum Book. And in the Plum Book is 7,000 positions that the president gets to appoint. And then there's an army of bureaucrats underneath that. And if elected, I would not fill any of those positions. And if Congress thinks that those positions are necessary to run the government, they can create those positions, not as parts of the president, but as an arm of Congress, and I think that Congress has basically given the president way too much power. And that we need to return the power from the presidency to the Congress. I'm a big fan of getting rid of the authorized use of military force. I don't think the president should be bombing anybody. It should be up to the Congress to decide if we're going to go to war, or we're going to kill people. It shouldn't be left up to one guy. I think that's way too much power. I would like to go through all the executive orders that have been made the entire time and basically just get rid of them all and start from scratch. Because if Congress thinks those things are important, they should create laws, not executive orders that we're all living under, because I don't want to live under a king. That was our whole point of starting our country, was to get out from under the king. And it feels like we're moving more and more and more towards a king again. And I don't want that for the American people. So I hope that answers that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
great. Well, we have about a minute left, Lars. So why don't you tell the folks where they can find you online, your website and social media accounts, if you
Yep,
would.
absolutely. Yeah, so lars24.com is my website with all the pieces of policy on it. I'm at Libertarian Lars on X, and you can search for me on Facebook, Lars for President. Look, we have 25 days till the nomination for the Libertarian Party. If you want to win on an election night, if you want to cause this contingent election, I can do it. But I absolutely need you to vote for me on the floor in DC. And I need you to be a first round voter. I can win this thing. I'm pulling from all sides of the party. I haven't played any of the caucus wars because I'm just trying to do a thing. I'm trying to deliver a win for the Libertarian Party. If I last 2 or 3 rounds in this, I'm going to win this thing because I'm pulling from everywhere. People like this. It's resonating with people. People want to try something different than we've had for the last 50 years. And I think it's high time that we do that. And this is an achievable goal. We need 250,000 votes. And I expect all libertarians that live within 500 miles of Omaha or Maine to come help me do this. But it doesn't mean that I'm only focusing on Omaha and Maine. I'm going to be traveling around the states and helping all of our down ballot candidates.